So, for example, probably I would guess one of the most alarming things was when I went to Africa and I met these people called the Hadza, which Westerners used to know as the Bushmen of the Kalahari. And these are people who are basically nomads living on the edge of the desert. And as they wander around, if they can catch and kill a big thing, then they live by it for a period of time. They're that nomadic. So I was able to catch up with them. And when we arrived, they were drying the skin of an impala in one corner while making a hat from a chimpanzee head for the chief in the other. And then they wanted to know if I wanted to go hunting with them. And I said, oh, sure, I do. So we would go off, and it turns out that hunting begins with getting high as possible on pot. So they're really stoned, and they have these disturbing bows and arrows, and I'm running around with these people. That may have been, in retrospect, the most frightening thing I've ever done.
The year before I set off for Borneo to write a book about orangutans, I read the chapter about that in Craig Nelson's travel book, Let's Get Lost. And now I want to talk to Craig about how he gets lost and what it means. It would be easy to get lost in the diversity of the life of Craig Nelson. He has been the chief editor of 4 major publishing companies. As an editor, he has interacted with a fascinating and unique personalities like Andy Warhol, John Lennon, the Rolling Stones, Orson Welles, Robert Evans, David Lynch, Philip Glass, Rita Mae Brown, and William Shatner, among others. Then, becoming an author himself, he has written 7 diverse and major books on topics like Pearl Harbor, the famous Doolittle air raid on Japan in World War II, and the first trip of U.S. astronauts to the moon. But it's in his travel book, Let's Get Lost, that Craig Nelson seems to get the most personal about his life and about a philosophy of seeking out unique circumstances despite the uncertainties and discomforts of that. The stranger the experience, the better. For his travel book, he skipped Europe and saw the Forbidden City in China, the ancient Inca city of Machu Picchu in Peru, as a glimpse of what he calls the sacred, the power of the vitality of the Nile Valley in Egypt, the perfection of the Giza pyramids, the impenetrable forest in Uganda, pink dolphins in the Amazon, gorillas in Uganda, orangutans in Borneo, plus more adventures in Bali, New Guinea, India, Kathmandu, Kenya, and Tanzania, and in the South Pacific, in Fiji and Tonga. It's like a buffet with more than you can eat, and that's the point of a buffet. It's the variety that makes the feast. And the feast of Craig's book is difference, diversity, and fullness, with a strange variety packed into a fast-paced 348 pages. In his travels, Craig gets into predicaments and tricky situations, and he narrates with a sense of humor and flexibility, and he can always extricate himself with that flexibility and humor. His voice as a narrator is often ironic. His irony deflates pretensions and breaks the spell of illusions. It frees us from deception. But his irony is also enchanting in itself. Reading his book makes you want to be more ironic. It seems from what he says that what he sought was the state of mind of what was the farthest from his experience and from his knowledge as a Westerner. He was ready to plunge into the unknown despite not knowing what would happen. There's also an underlying sense of continuously and relentlessly questioning a situation rather than simply being a passive observer. That epitomizes a unique sense of curiosity. His travel book is a kind of lesson in how to pursue curiosity itself, how to travel outside oneself. The farther outside oneself, the better. So if you don't feel like getting lost yourself after reading his travel book, you don't need to listen to Craig Nelson now. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Professor Thompson, for that beautiful introduction. I'm almost speechless. I'm so touched.
Don't be speechless, please. Please. I hope I didn't do that. I don't think I could ever get as lost in the world as you do, Craig, or squeeze so much unusual travel into just one lifetime.
Well, it's basically one major trip every year. So I think there are 13 a baker's dozen in that trip. So that is a 13-year project, you know. Like most recently, I'm very intrigued by the people who are upset by Darwin that we're descended from monkeys. They go, oh, we can't be descended from monkeys. Well, in fact, we're not even descended from monkeys. We're descended from this ancestor that sort of like a cross between a cat and a squirrel. So just think of how unhappy those people would be if they knew that. So, and the closest animal to that ancestor is the lemur. So I've been trying to go to Madagascar for 3 years and to see the lemurs. And they also have quite a spectacular baobab grove. And trying to see all these things on this island is tremendously difficult because the roads are not good. So just as I had it all pulled together to go, they started having civil disorder in Madagascar. So we couldn't go there. Now it looks like we might be able to go there, but that's almost the first issue with curiosity and travel is if you really want to do something, go because you might not be able to get in before the rest of your life is up.
Wow. So I really hope you get to Madagascar and experience those awful roads. So here's a question. Does it make sense to say that travel is an opportunity to get outside oneself, beyond what one can control personally, to experience the unexpected? When you travel, do you feel like yourself or do you feel different from yourself?
So to me, I live in New York City. And if I go to big cities in North America or Europe, I feel like I could almost stay home and do that. You know, I could go to an amazing part of Chinatown here and have somewhat of a Chinese. Anyway, I feel like major cities are all, in fact, we have a joke called the International Beach Resort joke. Where you could be in San Diego, you could be in Hawaii, you could be in Ibiza, you could be in Mallorca, and you're almost always in sort of the same kind of concrete overlooking the pool and the ocean situation. So what I want to do with travel is do something that really gets me out of my system and really gets me into something that's completely foreign. You know, it isn't just that people are speaking a foreign language, is that their alphabet is not our alphabet. So there's no way you can read the signs. And you have to figure out what to do when you're put in these situations. And part of the reason I wrote that book was because, I mean, I'm not a particularly courageous or physically fit or adventurous or any of the qualities of the big travel writers. I share none of them. I'm a little dumpy. I'm sort of middle class. I'm sort of humdrum. But that if I can go to these places, anybody can go to these places. And that's what I really wanted. I mean, I do collect spiritual objects from the developing world. So of course I've come back with a tremendous collection from doing this. But I just think getting completely out of your head is a tremendous experience when traveling.
What kind of spiritual objects have you collected?
Well, let's see. Next to my ear right here, let's see if I can point to it. That is a chicken mask from the Congo. And then behind it, up there, that is, and now I forgot his name, that is from Burma, and that's the evil character that snatches Rama's wife at the beginning of the Ramayana, and then this yellow thing right next to me that is a tanka from Tibet. So all of these things are from all over the place, and it's thrilling to have them. Oh, then over here, this is the Queen of the Underworld from Bali.
Oh, so what does it feel like you to have those spiritual objects at home with you?
They have a vibration. I have a very particular treasured pieces. When I meet, when I met to meet the Dani of New Guinea, they live in a valley surrounded by mountains, and because of where they live, they were not discovered by Europeans until I think the 1920s, and they became the foundation of Lost Horizon and Shangri-La. Anyway, so and they're cannibals, and their currency are pigs. So little tiny baby pigs are basically their sign of wealth. So whoever has the king must have the most pigs. And in order to get to this place, you have to fly in through these mountains surrounded in fog, and you have to sit at the airport nearby and wait and wait and wait for the fog to clear to be able to go. So it's just one thing after the next to keep you from going there. And finally, the hotel you have to stay in is the worst hotel in the world. There's a tin roof. It rains every night. It sounds like snare drummers on your roof. The minute that stops, the dogs start barking. It's really tormenting to do this. However, they do this thing where they take a piece of volcanic rock and they decorate it with a pig that's been executed, the tails and the ears, and they have this very elaborate sort of macrame that connects this rock and all these things. And you hang this in your house to keep jealous ghosts of the recently deceased from bothering you. And they gave me one of those when I went to see them. So that may be one of my favorite, probably my favorite thing of all.
Has it worked for you?
No, well, the ghosts don't bother me. They're just like hanging around. But no, I don't have any ghosts bothering me. The other piece that I have that I really love is an Inca carving that farmers in Peru bury in their ground for good luck with crops. And it has this beautiful Inca carving. It has thumbs pointing up, which is a sign of good luck in Inca. And then it has carvings of rain and sun and everything you would need for a good harvest to make your farmland work out. And the fact that this traces to before the Spanish conquest is amazing to me. So the fact that you can still get things like this is incredible.
Is there one place that you remember where you said, "I'm the most outside myself I've ever been"?
Well, I would have to say that I would have to say that in Mount Sinai is the most resonantly spiritual place I've ever been. That there is something going on there, and there's there's a monastery from the year 800, and they give you a tour, and they go, now there's the burning bush that Moses hit with a stick, and they actually give you a tour of Exodus and show you all these things, claiming that this is still existing, and none of that is believable. But there's something mesmerizing about being there, and it looks like Arizona. It looks like a cat litter state. There's nothing uniquely distinctive about it, but there's something in the atmosphere there. And it really, really struck me. And it struck me for the 3 days we were there. It was really amazing.
Your travel book is called Let's Get Lost, and I describe a real and genuine curiosity as a willingness to seek the unknown, the unexpected, the unpredictable, what can't one can't control personally, often coming with some disruption and discomfort. Are you conscious of that kind of curiosity in yourself? And what does it mean to you to get lost?
I'm conscious of throwing myself into a situation where I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't really have an easy method of conversing with people. I learn how to say around 10 polite things in the local language before I go. Hello, goodbye, how are you, thank you, I'm happy to be here, where's the bathroom? All those sort of fundamental things you need to know to get around. But then, if anything complicated happens, I don't really have a method of conversing by myself with the other people there. I have to use sign language. I have to use, and I have to sort of present myself as someone they're going to make an effort to try and help out. Or you're really put in a situation of helplessness that and frequently when I do these trips, I arrange all the infrastructure ahead of time. I already have most of the boats and the trains and the planes and the hotels and the transfers and the meals and the guides and all of that sort of taken care of ahead of time because I don't want to spend 5 hours a day doing that when I get there. I want to be on the vacation, but anyway, but even so, even with those best laid plans, you never know what's going to happen. So, for example, probably I would guess one of the most alarming things was when I went to Africa and I met these people called the Hadza, which Westerners used to know as the Bushmen of the Kalahari. And these are people who are basically nomads living on the edge of the desert. And as they wander around, if they can catch and kill a big thing, then they live by it for a period of time. They're that nomadic. So I was able to catch up with them. And when we arrived, they were drying the skin of an impala in one corner while making a hat from a chimpanzee head for the chief in the other. And then they wanted to know if I wanted to go hunting with them. And I said, oh, sure, I do. So we would go off, and it turns out that hunting begins with getting high as possible on pot. So they're really stoned, and they have these disturbing bows and arrows, and I'm running around with these people. That may have been, in retrospect, the most frightening thing I've ever done.
Wow. So, what do you think the connection is between getting high and going on a hunt?
I think they get high all the time, and I just think that was part of what they did before going hunting. I don't think it's a ritual or anything at all. I think and hunting for them is fun because it might end up with food, or it might just be a long walk. It might be the golf version of the Kalahari.
The subtitle of your travel book is Adventures in the Great Wide Open. What does that mean? Is the Great Wide Open a release from its opposite, what is closed or constrained, or is it something else?
Well, it's another term for the wilderness. So it's to go out into the wilderness and go out and primarily what I'm really doing is nature travels. I mean, I'm going to see particular animals or particular ecosystems or things like that. And the people I meet along the way end up being, of course, the best part of the trip. But seeing these animals, seeing a tiger in India or an orangutan in Borneo or a gorilla in Uganda is the central idea. And of course, I did travel to all three of the Liki women. I saw Beruti Galvikas's outfit in Indonesia, and we ended up not being able to land on Jane Goodall's island of chimpanzees, but we went right by it. And then and then of course there was a civil war in Rwanda, so we couldn't go there and see the same mountains as gorillas in the mist, but we went next door. So pretty much that was following the idea, and I traveled the whole Rift Valley in Africa following Leakey's ideas and tradition. So a lot of these trips are based on hearing about something and putting together the trip based on hearing about them. And of course, I mean, I can't imagine who wouldn't want to go see cannibals, because how many cannibals can there possibly be left? There are not a lot of them. So, and the other great thing about that story is, as I was flying in, I'd been told in Java other parts of Indonesia, I mean, oh, there are no more cannibals. We cut that all out and all that stuff. And so I'm flying into the plane into New Guinea, and I get off the plane and I pick the local paper, and it's two guys who'd been arrested for playing soccer with a human head. So I thought, oh well, so much for all of those warnings that they'd given me. So what I want to do with travel is do something that really gets me out of my system and really gets me into something that's completely foreign. Open yourself up to a completely different kind of experience, and you can transcend the limits of your own existence. So that's what I think curiosity leads to. There are certain vistas that just knock you out, and the only word really that fits is sacred, and Machu Picchu is one of them.